Так, ну что ж, поехали. Мы, короче, прошли одну историю чисто за дружбу, другую историю чисто на уничтожение. Оказались 5 и 21. А теперь давайте пойдем по третьей вехе. А по про храм заброшенный.
Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous
Сейчас, секунду. Извиняюсь.
man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
Я как говорил, храм. А теперь раз на этой локации. Ага, сундук. Опа.
That ought to be enough for a proper sword, he thought?
Возможно. Так, ну карта большая, смотрю. Только на мне нету карты. О, господи, сколько тут сундуков. Угу. Угу. Ну, что ты хочешь? Мечи. Угу. Мне нужно вот это. Поэтому пока я вот это вот не соберу, другое прокачивать не буду. Вот цветов у меня нет.
Renato distrusted doors that opened automatically, especially after being buried for millennia. Was this some sort of trap?
Такая ловушка, пойдем. Ух. Угу. Звук как кнопка притягиваться. Угу.
Smelt burnt fur. His.
Неудачно получилось.
Renato, the ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in.
Хилимся.
Good. Then he hadn't come too late.
Так, у меня есть левел ап. Угу. Хилочка. Так. Наверное, вот это возьмем. Хотя... Угу. Я даже не знаю. Они удары и броска увеличиваются. Здоровья мне пока хватает. Давай, наверное, вот это возьмем. Угу. Я пытался задефаться. Задефаться. Не успел. Давай, давай, давай. Ладно,
We'll
хрен
always
с ним.
have Paris, he thought.
Значит, всегда
And
будет
then
с
he
нами.
died.
Да я чё... Непонятно, зачем бросился на этого... ХП нет. Ты зачем бросился на типа щитом? Я чё... Во-первых, я не туда дэшнулся. Во-вторых, я в этот дэш был типа с щитом. Отдай!
He really wasn't making a dent in those shields.
Жопчики. Иметь. Уходим. О. Чего он этого не мог забрать? Не то. Пока. Насрал себе деление. Далее. Просто иди. Финансинка. Я думаю, пойдет. Так.
If they didn't want their things broken, they really ought to make them stronger.
О, сундучок. Угу. Секретка. Так, найди камень. Тебя исправили для этой важнейшей задачи за твою способность выполнять приказы, не задавая вопросов. Не слушай скептиков. Отличное подтверждение твоей высокой готовности. Твои показатели теста на интеллект. Прими за честь, что я, император, собственноручно избрал тебя для этой миссии. Сейчас следуй инструкциям. Часто только с напарником. Не разглядывай гравировки на стенах, не повторяй герметическую коробку. Не потеряй герметичную коробку. Когда найдешь камень, немедленно положи его в коробку и запечатай. Голос в голове не слушай. Запомни, храм населен призраками. Буквально. Это старинный храм, посвященный древнему злому божеству. Там практиковались кровавые жертвоприношения. Удивительно, что его заселили призраки. Не слушай голос в своей голове. Запомни, привидения не способны тебя ранить, но они попытаются тебя запутать. Если услышишь голос, прими снотворное. Если встретишь другого солдата с камнем, и он будет не в герметичной коробке, незамедлительно найди на него усыпляющим газом. Найди камень, положи его в коробку, запечатай. Но самое главное, найди камень. Что это трешок? Так. Тут я уже не вернусь. Тогда что? Дверь. Тут я не вернусь. Давай сюда сходим. Ой. А чё ж это другой меч? Ага. Ладно. Удобно на контур дэшиться, когда привык к шифту.
He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. They really needed to construct additional pylons.
Забираем. Пор. Вот ты что не делает, когда надо мне. Так, тут мы куда-то улетим. Там что? Ладно, полетели.
This would be the perfect place for a tic-tac-toe board.
Что-то такое себе. Так. Ничего не вижу. О, я так понимаю, это кристалл. Угу.
This one looked familiar. Had he lost this one in a card game? Welcome back, he thought.
Охотник за сокровищем. До кристалл. Так, а 2 осталось. Так, свет. Получается, у меня нету. Он типа в автомате, короче. Этот. Короче, в автомате суммируется. Просто можно либо выставить, либо суммировать, а он просто качается в автомате.
How could a temple to Iblis still even exist? The transcendent emperor had destroyed all the shrines of the lost gods after exiling them. Had it been buried in that long ago battle? Or had Iblis foreseen his fate and hidden it from his enemy?
Интересно, интересно. И что, он не просто так исчез? Есть какой-то подвох, скорее всего. Ага, дверь, которую не открыть. Обида. Иначе мы тут должны были зайти. Трогай дороги. Да, кстати.
That is a very cool sword, thought Renara. No, seriously. He couldn't feel his paw anymore.
Цвет дэша от меча зависит. Так, мы живы. Подруг, привет. Доброе утро, как говорится.
The ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders.
Левел нет. Левел просто значит. О. поехали.
Renato hated cannon traps.
М,
Also, who reloaded these things anyway? He never figured that part out.
какой кошмар. Остро ломаешь. И на расслабоне, кстати. Слушаю. Автора.
This
Сейчас
could be
рассказчик.
good for global warming.
В принципе, норм. Нет, тут благо тут загадки. Несложные. А сейчас будет мордобой. Да. Я что, нашел камень? Так.
It was a
Допустим.
stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up.
М,
Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Renato wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the Transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. It's the core, said the stone anxiously.
Смотрите, второй вариант будет хорошим. Пойдем по плохому.
Why was he listening to a talking rock? Ah, but the rock had a point. If the stone could truly turn him into a powerful warrior, he could defeat the Emperor with the very weapon the wicked old toad had sought for himself. To be a hero, you had to sacrifice old friends sometimes, especially when they've become enemies.
Будем злыднем. Может, не хочу потом в конце злыднем заканчивать игру.
As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet,
М,
Renato had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun. Was it
Oh.
the time of the lost gods before the Transcendent Emperor? Was it the future? It whispered. Take the power. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it. This was going to be interesting.
Да, это будет очень интересно. Я, короче, стал Вейдером. Воду. Так, пойдем сюда. О, сундук.
Well, no sense collecting more materials. It was time to make something pointy.
Иди в пень, не буду собирать, пока я не сделал себе фиолетовый меч. Что-то как-то никого нет. Так, о том, что... Чего? Мгм. Я без гугления закрыл первую локу на 100% внешне. О, поздравляю. Хорош, хорош. Так, тут мы не вернемся уже. Слушай, оно обычно так и получается. Так. Урона мне не добавилось, если что.
I think this is yours, said Renato. But he couldn't hear his enemy's answer.
Так, левелап мне не дали, хорошо, ладно. Ну и не надо. Так, еще один фиолетов остался. Кубик. Как он прыгает от то. Музыка напрягает. Что-то, походу, я сделал не так.
Once you try it, you're hooked.
Угу. О, сундук. О, живо, фиолетов. Как там? Корабль какой-то горит. Я так понимаю, это корабль этой, по-моему, принцессы. Левела, по меня нет. Раз. Эй, а ты прикалываешься? Я должен был схватить его, короче.
The ravens on
Пропушники.
Zenobia's island were no match for Renardo. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power. The stone told him.
Короче, я так понимаю, чем больше убивать, тем сильнее становлюсь, сказал рассказчик. Что мне показали субтитры. Ниндзя, да? Угу. Так, пора сделать новый меч.
This sword from the mystical east could make time itself slow for you.
Так, увеличить скорость передвижения. Так. Меч пустоты. Как раз под пустой камень, короче. Меч у нас есть. И можно вот это сделать. Всех окружающих. Макс уровень. Да, вот это. А, все, максимум 2 уровня, короче. Хорошо. Полностью
The
фиолетовый.
mysterious sword from the east made you so fast you could catch a fly with your chopsticks.
Хе-хе.
That's what you really wanted.
Хорошая отсылочка. Про Восток. И палочку с мухой. А, я думал, это может какая-нибудь ловушка. Ладно. Но у меня есть огненный меч. Поньк.
Ooh, what's there?
Хороший вопрос, что там? Угу. Зачем я сюда вообще иду? Мне скажет. О, сундук. Кристалл. Энергия за убийство. Так, а что за телепорт? Угу. Я даже руками теперь вставить. Так. За убийство пути к вам возвращается 3% энергии меча. Ну, в принципе, неплохо. Нет, я не вставил. Так. Ну что, поехали? Уехали. Поньк.
He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he?
Скажи, я же тут зайцев встречал в первой версии рассказа, нет? Или не тут? По-моему, тут я зайцев встречал. Канализация. Стики.
Hey, how do you
Ой.
tell if someone's far away or just really small?
Секрет. Ох-ох-ох. Физическая сопротивляемость. Хм. А я не могу назад вернуться. Блин, там, по-моему, был проход, кстати. О! Так, короче, каким-то не тем путем пошел. Походу.
Zenobia was waiting for Renato. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws. Are you here to surrender? She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't
Сейчас
know
кто-то
he
умрет.
had the stone. And I've missed you too, love. He chuckled. She spotted the stone and bolted without another
Ай,
word.
зараза. Ты не уйдешь от меня, пушка.
People had laughed at the government workbench placement program, but
Сорян.
you could see the benefits everywhere.
Сопротивляется еще ровно 20%, нихера себе. Там про любовь он что-то сказал. Ну, видимо, любовь не спасет уже. Ура. Мы пошли злой дорожкой. Ненавижу. Напушники. Так. Дорогая Зеноби, считаешь это письмо, будучи заперта в своих покоях в ожидании последней ночи ты знаешь, перед чем? Я буду извиняться, знаю, простить меня. Тебе не позволит гордость. Также я знаю, что ты не удержишься и прочтешь письмо до конца. Ты кошка. Пусть я и страдал, старался дать тебе образование, достойно благородной жабы, клянусь, и ты должна мне поверить, что когда я тебя удочерил, ничего такого в моих планах не входило, ты всегда была моим любимым котенком. Ну, я пишу теперь тебе это письмо, заранее за несколько недель за событий. Но и мне могло бы не достать радости сделать это в ночь жертвоприношения. Коль скоро я вижу в тебе ее дочь, я мог бы передумать. Ты можешь считать меня эгоистом. И да, я эгоист, печальная маленькая жаба, которая боится смерти. Но все, что я делаю в конечном счете, служит великому благу. Мне нужна власть, полная власть, поэтому мои подданные должны быть довольны. Мои навеки. Мир навеки. Ты могла бы оценить, даже если ты меня ненавидишь. Ты должна. Только так я могу простить за то, что я с тобой собираюсь сделать. Я буду скучать по тебе вечно. Постараюсь завтра не устраивать сцен. Все будут смотреть. Все так же с любовью, отец. Ну короче, в принципе, кошка все равно умирает. Так что мы ничего плохого не сделаем. Зачем мы сделаем плохое? Ну не настолько. И не столько плохо, как преподает автор. То есть кошка в любом случае умерла бы в этой ветке событий. Да, вкусненько. Вкусно, невкусно. Так. Что возьмем? Может, замедло времени. Хотя я бы дэш взял себе. Где дэш был? Вот он. Требуется делать рывок сквозь из 3.
This was way better than being able to shrink down to the size of an ant. What was that all about anyway?
Угу. И вот это нужна штука. А то я задолбался выкиваться в них. Как сразу. Когда себя наяривает. Да пройди ты. Ух, мне иногда это напрягает. Дай како. сюда. О, вот это я понимаю. Он иногда, короче, вместо дэша ничего не делает, просто стоит. Аж вмораживает. Так, зайца я смотрю, нет. Заяц раньше был, по-моему. Кошка, иди сюда. А нет, вот ее корабль.
Finally, Renato caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were wide, frightened. He didn't like seeing her this way. Kill her, whispered the stone. You cannot win your rebellion without it. Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be?
Ну, мы идем по злому пути.
With a flick of his wrist, he slashed Zenobia's throat. Her eyes widened even more. And then the light went out of them. Renato felt amazing. Power was rushing into him like water from a burst dam. Oh, such brilliance, exulted the Iblis stone. Tasty. Renato returned to the Farfarer and set a course for the Nexus. The Empire had a communication outpost there. He could call the Emperor directly. It was time to seize the outpost and let the Emperor know what he had done.
Тут, кстати, почти выбора и нет. Угу.
The Nexus was beautiful. He never realized how beautiful.
Угу.
Everything glowed. The wind was so sweet. The sun so soft. The stones so warm. The black raven feathers. Black feathers. Suddenly, his eyes are filled with them. He's falling through smoke under a dead sun. A voice calls him home. Is this a vision? Whose? Is this the time of the lost gods? Or the future?
Кого-то
No
кроет.
matter. What mattered now was killing his way to the Imperial outpost and challenging the Emperor from there.
Мужик слазь.
Imagine if you built a
молнии.
house of
И
one of these
порочных не
things.
было.
Oh, that would be amazing. It would be like having a boat.
Да, крыша едет у пацана. Ну, как ты хотел быть злым? С поехавшей крышей. Блин, могу не вернуться. А и там я уже не вернусь. Что
What's
делать?
behind? Door number 2.
Хм. Ну, вот я тоже могу не вернуться, кстати. Но если что, пересоздадим игру. Это безумие. Не, зверь еще не этот.
Once, he'd found a Superman issue number 1 in mint condition in a jar he'd broken. He planned to keep breaking things until he had the whole series.
Хм. Рискнуть или не рискнуть? Пойти сюда. Мгм. Я не буду рисковать. Пошли туда. Может, конечно, делал что-то неправильно. Я боюсь, что я потом не вернусь. Я типа срез? Или все-таки секретка? Походу срез.
Shall we dance? Could the lead raven?
Иди ты. Это было близко. Угу. Шанс. Угу. Не зря я туда пошел.
Whee!
О, Ви, а не гей.
Up
Не.
ahead was Lapino.
Ага.
What was he doing here? Bernardo! Hey, buddy! Hey there, old buddy! Please don't kill me!
Угу.
Why would I kill you? Asked Bernardo, although he had been thinking about it. Well, you've become... no, I mean, no disrespect at all here.
Угу.
Kind of evil? Maybe you should, I don't know, go to the mountains to have a think? See if maybe you're sure the stone is not all that healthy a thing to keep? I suppose you would, Renato said, and poked Lapino in the chest for emphasis. Oh, had he just killed Lapino?
Чего?
Damn it.
Короче, я просто тыкнул и ничего не убил. Ладно. Жесть какая-то. Лапина пока.
He'd go to the outpost, use their far speaker, tell the Emperor what he'd done, and then he'd go to the secret rebel base, let them know he was ready to lead them to victory.
Я понимаю, к повстанцам приду уже врагом.
Ooh, a workbench. Did he have any jewels he hadn't tried out? He had.
Ну, я бы криты взял, на самом деле. Я мечами почти не пользуюсь, точнее, их магией. Жесть.
Renato rampaged through the Imperial outpost like a water buffalo rampaging. At the last moment, he remembered not to kill the far speaker toad. After all, he wanted a word with the Emperor. But there was only silence. The Emperor was scared, like little girl. Well, he would gather the rebel army and slaughter the Imperial fleet.
Угу.
Yes, applauded the Iblistone. Tremendous. Then the Emperor would have to answer his far speaker, wouldn't he? Who are you? Asked a distant voice that sounded uncomfortably like Zenobia. What have you become? The mountains. Go to the mountains, urged another that sounded a bit like Lapino.
Слушай, далекие голоса. Уничтожение.
Renato called the rebel council to let them know to gather their forces. Then he killed the far speaker toad. Why? Oh, because to make sure his sword was sharp. Oh no, that's awful. So no one else could use it. Yes, that's it. Then he set off for the ruins and the secret rebel base.
Первый проходит за Борея.
The
Достижение.
ruins were crawling with ravens. Probably looking for the secret base, Renato thought. But then he realized they're probably looking for me. They must be very scared of me. Well, here I am.
You.
Honest warrior ever, whispered the Iblistone. And he had to agree with it, for once. Who was as good as Renato?
Крыша она такая. Течет сама по себе.
This one contained nothing but unmatched gloves. And something more useful.
Нет. Угу. Угу.
Don't look down, he thought.
Блин, тут лифт. Давай попробуем.
This must be that sufficiently advanced technology they always talked about.
Энергия убийства качнулась. Но я ее убрал. Толка нет от этого. Ночью телепорт. Угу.
Urged the stone.
А вернуться нельзя?
Come to think of it, Renato thought as he put down another raven, why shouldn't I be emperor? How did anybody get to be emperor anyway? By making war. Oh, I mean, not counting the transcendent emperor, obviously, who had banished the lost gods and started time. Yes, he should be emperor. He would make a great emperor. Right, Stone? Oh, right, boss.
Обработали лиса.
Hey, why don't you guys fight in groups? Oh, I know. Because there's no I in team.
Закрыть нас за достижение. Жалко, я не могу вернуться. Я лифт, получается, просрал. Можно так? Жалко, жалко. Я спать не
Long
буду.
stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good.
Зараз. Да ёб твою мать.
Alas, they had to bury him in a bucket. Actually, several buckets.
Я, короче, прыгал в одного, попал в другого, летел в третьего, и чуть жопу пошло. О, все. Да ёб твою мать.
The worst thing about ravens was they never dropped any loot, and no one ever wanted the feathers.
Так. Ой.
Bernardo had been the terror of the sandcastles when he was 2.
Ага. Для щитов. В принципе, щиты могу и так доставать. В принципе, не надо. Чё, босс? Активировать. Секретная база.
Bernardo strode into the council. Let's do this thing. Let's make me emperor. They looked confused and nervous. Ah, had he mentioned the emperor thing? Yeah, he meant to bring that up later. I mean, let's go win this rebellion. He waved his sword around encouragingly. They ran. Cowards. He'd stop them. He cut down a few to inspire the others. But soon, there was no one to cut down. Well then, he'd have to attack the fleet alone. More for me, he said, unless it was the stone that said it. Traitors. Traitors, all of them. They'd run rather than following him, rather than cheering him. What should he do to the cowards? Anything he wanted to. After all, he was a true hero, the best warrior there ever was. No one can stop him now. But first, finish him. The Emperor, that is.
Кстати, в этой истории, по-моему, ни разу не появлялось ответвление от других историй. Но, знакомая
Where
мапа.
was the rebel fleet? They weren't even trying an assault. They were going to miss a day in history. The downfall of this dynasty, and a new one to take its place. He didn't have to kill all the ravens. He could enslave them, and enslave the toads too. All the animals would worship him as a god, for he had once been a god. They would willingly give him their blood and their souls. And the world would change, would become familiar again.
Не. Тема, походу, крыша полностью уехала. А я так понимаю, мне нам давали шансы справиться, но... Вот это надо. Кстати, постоянно эту мапу с одной и той же точки начинаю.
Or I could go that way, he thought.
Снега. Так. лучше взять. Давайте я хочу даже сосквозь щиты.
Nice. That could be useful.
Фига себе. Энергия за убийство 3. Обалдеть. А мы теперь прилетели обратно. И
What else
прикольно,
could you
прикольно.
hook? Bernardo was glowing with dark power. Already the sun had dimmed. He could do anything, he realized. He could wrap the island safely in smoke again. He was beyond a hero.
М-м.
He was going to become a god again. How odd, he thought, that the Iblastone had nothing to say about any of this. Well, no matter. Once he killed this petty toad emperor, he would bring back the Black Sun.
Да. Оно грустно, грустно.
These platforms were great. Bernardo wanted one for his house.
М-м. Раньше, по нельзя было тэпаться.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Funny that this whole war had come about because the Emperor feared death. And now it was coming for him. There was some sort of lesson there, wasn't there?
Старался. Смотри сюда. Ни хрена себе. Меня типа приглашают в гости. Ну пойдем.
He found the Emperor and the Council huddling by his ship, plotting. They saw him and cowered before him.
Back to hell, fiend.
Croaked the Emperor desperately.
In the name of the Transcendent Emperor.
Croaked the speaker. They held some arcane items he didn't recognize. He simply flexed his will and sucked their souls out of their bodies. And Iblis exulted. It is finished. And the void that had been a mere stone on a sword expanded. It stretched and ripped like a vast womb. And a gaze, black and pitiless as the sun, passed through the void into the land. And so time ended. And just like that, he was alive again, and back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book was still open before him. So, the book was a portal.
Так, ну
Took
история
you to the
завершена.
future,
История
when your
12.
destinies would branch. He
Пробуждение.
had failed and died 3 times, but he
Что за
learned.
герой?
another true thing.
Герой, который открылся с целью, вышел из собственного
Was
тела,
evil.
дерзнул стать
It would try to
божеством.
corrupt anyone who used it.
Так. И вот он и Иблис. Награда. Умение 4 уровня открыто. Иблиса портит каждого, кто его использует, и новая истина открыта. Так, хорошо.
But he was starting to feel like he was getting the hang of this. There was a way through to victory. He could feel it. He just had to keep running the path of Destinies. With that, the book fluttered back to the beginning, and he fell into it. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They
Простите,
needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Так, ну теперь давайте, короче, проходить по порядку. Фул Лапина сделаем, потом фул...
Lapino. Apparently the
Так, ну тут мы знаем все. Думаю, нет смысла слушать по 5 раз одно и
Lapino
то
had
же.
apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? Where was a workbench when you needed one? Oh, never mind.
Так. Романов тихотай, получит достижение. А, слушай, мы не с корабля начали. Нифига себе. Ладно, бывает. Так.
The Ravens had taken the town. Renato had seen villages emptied like this. All the people taken away to be sacrificed in the Emperor's secret rituals. Renato hoped the people were just hiding. Renato thought of the Iblis stone and shivered.
Разве это было?
He had no business messing with ancient, cruel artifacts. What he needed was his friends around him. Clear eyes, full hearts.
А ведь
Can't lose.
из ответвлений, короче. Новые диалоги. Да про камень. Я про него раньше типа слышали легенду.
Renato hoped his mother wasn't watching.
М-м. Отдай. Так, секрет.
Boy, someone had spent a lot of
Mhm.
money for a graduation present.
Поднял за сокровищем третий, неплохо. Как тут дорога еще была. Ну, какая-нибудь секретка.
With all this ore, Renato could forge a really great sword. He was a master forger. That probably wasn't the right word.
Да, теперь, кстати, можно выучить бег второго уровня. Потому что уже будем сейчас бегать одним тем же локациям. Желательно, конечно, делать это быстрее. Так, вниз пока не идем. Чекаем этот
I'll
уровень.
just have a dash, thought Renato.
Блин, нам бы прям Майнкрафт в домах, огороды. Я, по-моему, прыгал вниз, да? Если не
Renato felt
ошибаюсь.
that all the recent fighting had taught him something new, but he couldn't quite put his paw on it.
Бег берем. Ага. О. Проход.
What was behind that door? Renato's nose told him there was treasure there. They must have forgotten it in a hurry. Surely they wouldn't mind if he helped himself to it. After all, they wouldn't even know.
Ну а как дальше? Чего? Так, я сейчас не понял.
He felt like Tarzan.
Понял. Тов нам не надо. Такие грибы огромные. Так, меч мы не можем сделать. Лап. Не знаю, а, у нас выхода нет. Прыгать. Раньше, по-моему, можно было туда ходить. Я могу ошибаться. Так. Ну чё? Жалко, нельзя камень черный подчинить и в печатку вставить. Было бы прикольно. Свидания.
Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their
Да, вот на
prisoners.
следующем пешком
Even
прибегали.
top spies like Lupino. Well, unless he really was a traitor, obviously. Then they'd probably pin a medal on his chest.
Ставочка с прошлого прохождения
There was
про
a pleasant
Лапину.
breeze coming through that door.
М.
Had it been closed before?
Так, дорогая Зенобия, как тебе нравится в Академии? Несомненно, вокруг тебя уже вьются новые друзья. Я здесь все по-прежнему. У меня достаточно времени для моего собственного хобби. С профессором Клаверсом и его командой экспертов совместно работаем с изучением природоостровов. Но утром чую, эти острова живые, и на мой взгляд, они наделены собственной волей. Дочь, слышишь ли ты меня? Возможно, наш мир — это нечто большее, чем совокупность плавающих камней и воды. Плавучих камней и воды. Мгм. Сэр Клаверас со своими ребятами провел изменение острова. Острова дрейфуют. На фоне бескрайнего неба заметить это нелегко. Значительное изменение ветра в течение долгого периода времени. Точно, что показало, острова движутся в западном направлении. Но куда? До цели могут отделять нас века или тысячелетия. У меня появилась странная идея. Что если острова нечто подобие стада, который ведет методичные поиски другого стада островов? И может попросить новые острова со своими обитателями. Мысль о том, что мы, возможно, не одиноки. Если бы только мне посчастливилось дожить до того, чтобы увидеть это своими глазами, с любовью, отец. То есть у нас мир построен на летающих островах все-таки. И весь мир, походу, не открыт еще.
Not everyone knew how to use magical gems. Of course, not everyone had magical gem
Так, вот это
gauntlets
неплохо.
like he did.
Сопротивло. Раз. Не, может, сдохнем уже. Вообще все ужасно получилось. Даже комментатор ничего не сказал по этому.
Long live the Emperor! Called the ravens.
Так, еще мы кролика найдем. И вот должно быть, по-моему, пирате отвлечение.
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lapino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was... We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows. And that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who also happened to be a deadly sorcerer, and oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power.
Там у Зиновия, по-моему, есть еще разветвление. Я могу ошибаться. Ага, вот можно смотреть. Давай, короче, сюда вернемся.
Zenobia, what?
Листаем.
The city was already under
А
Zenobia's
что мы остались
control.
прям друзьями-друзьями.
Had to admire her efficiency.
Нашли
Renato
любовь.
shivered at the thought of Zenobia at the mercy of the interrogators. Could he really turn her over to them?
Вот
This was
попробуем
war.
другое.
It wasn't meant to be pretty.
Sorry, mustache, thought Renato.
This chest was really awesome. See what I did there?
Путник от Бога просто. Ну. Лапа нету.
Everybody knew you shouldn't trust a raven further than you could throw one. But did vertical drop count?
Открою врата. Нифига нету.
Firewalls only let you through if they think you're hot
Блин, ну
enough.
я же собрал сундук. Тут типа какой-то. Давайте посмотрим. Да. Тут пустота. Или сундук стоит. Работает. Все-таки шанс. Ну, неплохо, неплохо. Я думал, тут сундук будет, типа, не будет сундука.
This chest contained blank passports from 15 countries. And something useful. Why was Lupino urging him to capture Zenobia? Obviously it was a trap. But you never knew how Lupino thought. Sometimes his plans were so convoluted they did the exact opposite of
А,
what
вот видишь,
Lupino
проход
wanted.
открыт.
Yeah, there must be some way to play on that, Bernardo thought. He hadn't noticed that path before.
То есть мы сейчас можем пройти мимо Лапи, кстати. Ну, пойдемте, хочу там выбрать кое-что другое у него в ответах. Там просто можно выбрать. Попробуем другой ответ. Что-то их много. Пусто. Влево. А, вон Лапина.
So,
Сейчас даст выбор два плана.
what's this plan of yours? Use me as bait, said Lupino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese, a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lupino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renardo hiding inside a monstrous watermelon. What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renardo.
Тут мы делаем не сейчас.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sure you know better, said
Mhm.
Lupino.
Вот мы сделали типа первый выбор. И что, в этой истории можно еще в этот прыгнуть. Колодец. Если он получается, а Лапина должны будем обойти. Мимо. Раз. На расстоянии убил. Sure.
Renardo had once invested in a jewel store, but it lost money because someone kept robbing it. Twist. It was
Зомби.
him.
Возвращаем тебе вещи. Да, короче, про то, что ее должны предать огню. Сейчас не мог, кстати, задохаться. А ты... Выбесил меня. Так, нет, это ГГ.
Touche, he said, and died.
Душе. Так, ладно. Сделаем по-другому. Простить нельзя. что-то не задеф стали. Это бред какой-то. Задефай сюда. Мне уже погорит. И вот я без этого прихожу. Без лапинок сюда.
Renato slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all. Where were her guards? Finally, he reached her bedroom. She was curled up on her bed. Oh, he'd forgotten how beautiful she was. How sleek. How soft. He tapped her on the shoulder with his sword. She became smoke. And he noticed he had a blade to his throat. Stay a while, purred a familiar voice. Did you really think you could capture me? Zenobia said as her ship lifted off. Now I just wanted some privacy, Renato said. Did you ever wonder why the Emperor adopted you? And he told her why. His Imperial Majesty wanted to bring the lost gods back. They could make him immortal.
Текст рассказал, который
To seal the
нашли.
bargain, he needed a sacrifice. Someone who truly loved him. You're lying. She was furious. You can't prove that. I can. And so they set sail for the Nexus.
Получается, упускаю другую нить сюжета. Блин, тяжело следить.
The scientists at the observatory have resurrected one of his victims. Well, he's not exactly alive, but it can talk and it can't lie. You took a big risk. You know, I could just cast a spell to make you tell me where the rebel base is. And you wouldn't consider that cheating? She frowned. Fine. Let's go get your witness.
Так.
The rebellion had started after atrocities that the Empire hushed up. Renato had rescued a priest whose order had been massacred for one book. He had slept in a burnt village. Dead kittens and puppies had come to tell him what the Emperor had done to them. He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things.
Мне вообще ничего не падает. О, выпало. Так, тут мы были, нет? Я уже не помню. Нет, не были. Мемича тогда не было.
Who made all these ore chests anyway? Well, you could have quite a business doing that.
Чпанька. Ну и куда это? Видишь, молнии нет в этом прохождении. То есть молнии появляются только когда ты злой.
What were these poles exactly? Parking meters from the time of the lost gods?
Кстати, нашел короткий путь. А нет, нашел.
Renato remembered when he'd first stolen one of these. Good times.
Текст. Догма о трансцендентном императоре и последнем божестве пропитавшим, попировавшим небо, известен нам со школьной скамьи. Он якобы изгнал злобных богов древности и даровал нам само время. Но под силу ли одному человеку, сколь бы не был он божественно, сотворить нечто столь замысловатое, как время? У меня есть одна теория. Я полагаю, что время — не дар, а проклятие, и убежден, что закон мироздания скачивается, словно маятник между порядком и хаосом. Дед Император покончил с хаосом и положил начало эпохи, в которой мы живем, эпохи причин и следствий, фактов и логики. Время просто гобелен, на котором проявляются эти законы. И оно порождение спутника порядка, энтропии. Но в эпоху хаоса, во времена древних богов, восприятие перемешивает факты, эмоции, способны формировать миры, а время не действует более. Эпоха порядка завершается, я просто способствую неизбежному. Энтропия повержена. Путы судьбы разорваны. Близится конец времени, и я принимаю его с распростертыми объятиями. Тайный дневник императора из Грима III. Господи, они все поехавшие. Ага, это мы чисто дневник походу нашли. Хорошо. Видимо, где-то по истории мы будем это рассказать кому-нибудь. Как вы, допустим, Зиновье рассказали о том, что это ее собираются линчевать в угоду божества. Раз. Больше не успел. Окей.
You caught up with him. Don't you think I'd know if my father started practicing black magic? Why? Would you want to join in? Oh, no, I'd destroy his books and... All right, I suppose I wouldn't. She stopped, troubled. He ran on.
Нифига себе. Попу не было. Но не догоняла никогда. Блин, я так понимаю, это я начал вторую ветку истории. Первую я просрал. А ведь все-таки нужно было ей сделать ловушку. Так сложно. Ва-ва-ва. Ва-ва-ва. Не хватает регена, короче, хп. Да. Понятно, мол, не появились. Ладно, беру свои слова обратно. Значит, в этом злой ветке выше приезжаю.
They were neutral in the civil war engulfing the Empire, but they could see that the dark magics the old Toad had loosed were changing the world. Renata hoped he and Zenobia weren't putting them in danger. Building these platforms was so expensive, they'd run out of budget for guardrails.
Как попал? Сначала я на парень.
Renato had learned so much. It was time to turn it into something he could use.
Куда нет? Далеко мапа огромная. Если так подумать, всякие разветвления, проходы. Это срань. Мы, походу, не успели.
The observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere.
Не
The
успели.
ravens had taken care to burn the reanimated witness to cinders. Zenobia stared around, shocked. The scientists had been neutral. They had no part in the rebellion. Take me to your council, she said, shaken. I have things to tell them. It was what Renato had gambled on. The Zenobia would turn against her father once she knew his madness. But the rebel base was secret. Could he really risk taking the Emperor's daughter there?
Давайте по верхнему пойдем.
Renato reached Lapino by Farspeaker Toad.
No, we should take her to the base.
Insisted Lapino. No, I don't trust her. Nobody changes sides that fast, said Renato.
I better go to the base. Let them know you've got her.
Lapino said. For some reason, Renato wasn't sure that was a good idea. Just meet me at the far side of the mountains. There's a shuttle here I can take.
Always has to be your way, doesn't it?
Said Lapino.
Так, хорошо. Да, значит, другая ветка истории.
Zenobia was still shaking as they got out. I didn't know, she said. The ravens kept it secret. At first they sacrificed prisoners, then villages near the frontier, and then an orphanage.
Господи.
Kittens and puppies. Sometimes he'd come back to the palace and it was like there were glowing things behind his eyes. But I was so busy. I'll clear a path for us, Renato told Zenobia, so the ravens don't see you.
Теперь мы ей помогаем. А тогда она просила.
Ooh, wouldn't his gauntlet look swell with that jewel in it?
Так. Ворона, да сейчас. Угу. Нет камня на опыт. Я бы не отказался.
He hoped his hook didn't break.
Бежьтесь. Господи. Говно.
Oh, they really ought to put a railing on this thing, he thought.
Я тут тоже, кстати, не помню, куда надо идти. Правильному. И все, ради вот этого мы сюда шли. Капец. Где? Еще внизу что-то есть. Тут упал.
Zenobia came up as he massaged his sore arm. Her eyes were wet. He's been saying strange things. He asked me to do experiments. And some were wrong. They are banished, right? Said Renato. Gone forever. I mean, he couldn't actually bring the old gods back, could he? She didn't answer him. That frightened him more than anything. Renato felt bad for littering, but these islands were short on trash cans.
А еще кто есть? Он, видимо, всех убил. Так, туда дорога есть. И туда дорога есть. Туда дорога есть. Куда идти? Сюда.
Couldn't they have put in an elevator? Or a giant eagle? Or something?
Скажи. Ясно, ясно. Так, она может быть сейчас подстава адская. Пока живем. Это было больно.
A magical jewel.
Угу.
Renato couldn't wait to find a workbench.
Просто против она, в принципе, не нужно. Опять провалился. Что ты будешь делать? Ага.
Welcome to Earth, Renato told the corpses. It was something he'd seen in a play once.
Цинк, цинк, цинк. Вообще ничего нигде нет. Это. Почему мне не дают хил-то, алё? Нечестно.
Well, they really needed to redecorate anyway.
Отстой. Я не туда пошел, да? Поймите. А можно? Усраться.
The
Ну-ка,
new
ну-ка.
pathway made Renato curious.
Угу. Чё это такое? М. Дорогая Зеноби, ты помнишь ту экспедицию, которую я направил в глубины под островами? Она вернулась, точнее вернулись 3 корабля из 8, посланных мною, разумеется. Без корабля о потерях. Но информация, которую принесли выжившие, бесценна. То, что им удалось выяснить, неслыханно, воздух становится все более плотным и бушующим. И не превращается в удушающую, перемалывающую кости бурю. Но острова тянутся на многие мили ниже поверхности, а их корни стремляются вниз, настолько хватает взора. Острова живые, его доказательства, которые я доискал. Плотный воздух глубин поддерживает их на плаву, и в глубинах же они находят себе пропитание. Обладают ли они сознанием? Сознают ли наше существование? Или даже мы для них просто паразиты, которых они игнорируют или терпят? Я должен подготовить еще одну экспедицию. На этот раз я отправлюсь туда лично и должен увидеть этот чудесный мир бесконечного глубокого неба. Надеюсь, ты навестишь меня прежде, чем я собираюсь в путь. Я бы хотел узнать побольше об этом твоем новом друге. Рейнарда. Хм, интересно. Это он еще в адвокате был, я так понимаю. Ну, не совсем поехавший. Всё.
Everybody who wants to die, raise your weapon.
Господи,
All right.
сейчас дашь нажал 5 раз. Не дошелся ни разу. Жопушники. Прочли. А зачем я это делаю? Моментами все нормально работает, а моментами такая деревянная становится просто нереально это сделать.
No one could beat Bernardo at hot potato.
Ёп, медь. Это ГГ. Вот я сейчас задефался от него.
Cowardly warlocks. Why wouldn't they come close? We could kill them.
Пыш-пыш. Тоже начинает бесить. Дефайся, алло. Минус. Вот так.
There was a radiance at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Mother? I thought.
Сейчас повернулся, он сделал блок от ворона, но при этом ворон все на его, короче, ударил. Уже инди игры. Немного деревянненькие. Щит не дают. Побежим. А дефать ты будешь? Да? Врагов все меньше и меньше становится.
Someone needs a bath.
Врагов, короче, все меньше и меньше походу проигрываешь. Скорость атаки. Стихии 3.
what was really fun was hooking yourself onto a moving ship. Renato wondered if he should have taken Zenobia to the rebel base for real.
Ай.
Maybe she wasn't playing him after all. After the bleak talk about the Emperor's dark secrets, he was regretting his suspicion.
На безумности сейчас истина предаст. Так. Все, теперь смогу в следующем уровне через щиты прыгать. Угу. Где мужик?
They came up on an empty shack. He gestured her in. Where's the base? She asked, confused. I thought we could talk a bit first. Oh, you think I'm playing you? She was furious. I'm betraying my father who picked me out of an alley, and you think I'm playing you? She lashed out. Her claws sliced fire into his face. Energy boiled in her other paw. But before she could kill him, he slashed his sword into her heart. She staggered. I could have loved you, you son of a bitch. And then she died. Renato stood there for hours, unable to move. Finally, a ship landed near him.
Ни хрена
Lapino
себе.
had brought the Farfarer. On board the Farfarer, Lapino couldn't stop grinning. I can't believe you actually killed her. Why didn't I trust her? Renato said. All he could feel was emptiness. You killed the Emperor's daughter. You might want to run for it, if you care whether you live or die, that is. Since Renato didn't, he grabbed the wheel, and he sailed for the Imperial fleet.
Вот это поворот.
Renato had never felt worse. Zenobia had listened to him. He had trusted him. She had opened her eyes to her father's evil. Done everything he had hoped for. He had taken her to a dirty shack. Was he so used to lying that he couldn't trust even the girl he had always loved?
Слушай, если бы на нее не напала, то все нормально. Я вообще не понимаю, зачем она на нее напала.
Had that
Без
door been
толочи.
opened before?
Типа, смысл того, что она напала. Она типа выиграла. Эти девушки. Так, скорость атаки. Угу.
That was always a rush. He could see the rebels reeling back as he plunged into the ranks of the Ravens. He'd had to kill the girl he loved, but he'd also blown the biggest opportunity they could have had, to turn the Emperor's daughter against him. Oh, Renato could only laugh miserably. He was taking crazy chances now, swinging wildly. He expected the Ravens to take him at any moment, but they were running in fear. No one wants to fight a man who doesn't care if he lives. No one wants to fight a hero.
Не.
It was a bit windy up here.
Так. Я, короче, щитов не могу. Это бред.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Again. This time, he'd make an end of him. He'd screwed up last time, but he had a good feeling about this time.
Ничего в конце, ну-ка.
He was exhausted. Could barely think. He wanted to stop
Задание
thinking.
Кармелита.
The
Достижение.
rebels were already finished, and he was the last. The ravens were coming for him personally now, in waves. It didn't matter. He was slick with his own blood, but it didn't matter. In the distance, he could see her, embraced by a halo of light, holding her hand out to him. Had she forgiven him? Would she take him to the halls of the Valiant? Then he felt steel in his belly, and his chest, and his back. And he lay down, and he couldn't see her anymore. Oh, damn
Просто.
it. He lost again, and died. But there was burning Ubar behind him. He still had all his destinies
История
ahead of him.
11. Почти
But he
честно.
learned another true thing. Zenobia still had feelings for him.
Герой, который продолжает сражаться, даже когда ему незачем жить. Ну, есть чувство Крейна, да. Плюс 2 уровня. Нифига себе. Угу. Ну, не будем открывать. Мы сначала откроем все здесь.
He knew enough now, he thought. All these truths tumbling around each other in his head. There must be a way to puzzle the pieces together. If he used everything he knew, he could discover a new path to destiny. The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion, and he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.
Блин, опасно проходить теперь вот это вот. Блин, ну тут ключ, это получается основная история. Ну так нечестно. А, давайте попробуем.
Renato finally realized that Lapino was a traitor to the cause, and maybe Renato could use that somehow.
Угу. Сюда нельзя идти. Давай. Так. Получается, мы сейчас должны в деревню попасть снова.
Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the ravens?
Давай тут.
Now he could slice the wings off a fly in the air. Not that he would. It's sort of mean, really.
Так. Угу.
The ravens had taken the town. Renato had seen villages emptied like this. All the people taken away to be sacrificed in the Emperor's secret rituals. Renato hoped the people were just hiding. This chest was filled with old concert t-shirts
Просто атаки.
and something useful.
Допустим.
The village looked so peaceful. Were the villagers hiding somewhere? Of course not. No matter how much he searched, he would only find ravens here. Maybe I should follow my nose, thought Renato.
Секретку тут заберем сейчас. Застрял в этой шляпе. Так, пожалуйста, хватит застревать.
When Renato went to the china shop, for some reason the owner was always nervous.
Я сказал, я все камни собрал. Ну-ка. Перейти. Да, слушай, я походу все собрал. М. Окей. Не, походу ко мне все фул.
He shouldn't get impatient. He needed
Так,
to
вот возьмем.
take the time to figure out what all his experience had brought him.
Угу. Угу. Да, наверное. Замедло, наверное, возьмем. Или вот это вот.
Always wanted to do that.
Из равновесия выводить. Так, мне осталось 50 руды. Мечи все будут. Задефайся.
There was still no sign of Lapino. Not a hair, not a pellet. Was he hiding in the cemetery further down the road? That didn't seem like him.
Кстати, обошли этот колодец. Готово.
Lapino would betray him. But now Renato knew that. What would Lapino do if he knew that Lapino was going to betray him?
Ой-ой-ой.
Well, He'd concoct some crazy scheme, wouldn't he? That used Lupino's betrayal against him and it would blow up in his face. Yeah. Maybe he was overthinking this. And that would be a first.
На этом мы к Лапину пришли, да. Если сходим гуляем, если в секретке опять ничего не будет, то... По секреткам, получается, нет смысла ходить. Есть только вот эти вот, искать свитки. Да, все. Кристаллы все собраны.
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows. And that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who happened to also be a deadly sorcerer, and
За Зиновий сейчас идем
his only
опять.
daughter? That would be worth it. And it would be nice to see her. He'd always had a soft spot for her. And he felt sure she had one for him. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power.
Так,
Zenobia
Зиновия.
wasn't just
Только что нельзя вот пролистывать
the
некоторые
city was
моменты.
already under Zenobia's control. I had to admire her efficiency.
Я забыл что-то убрать. Извиняюсь.
Shivered at the thought of
Игра
Zenobia at
осталась.
the mercy of the interrogators. Could he really turn her over to them? But this was war. It wasn't meant to be pretty. Ooh, sparkly, thought Renato.
Так, еще ты 32 руды. Изи. Так, тут у нас... вспомнил.
Ah, the road less traveled, thought Renato. How intriguing.
Наверное, смысла уже нет сюда было идти, на самом деле. Нету ничего. Да, все, кристаллов больше нет. Я точно в этом уверен. Надежда чуть теплилась. Где-то выпадет.
Why was Lupino urging him to capture Zenobia? Obviously it was a trap. But you never knew how Lupino thought. Sometimes his plans were so convoluted they did the exact opposite to what Lupino wanted. Yeah, there must be some way to play on that, Renato thought. So, what's this plan of yours?
Сейчас пойдем по
Use me as
плану.
bait, said Lupino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese, a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lupino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renato hiding inside a monstrous watermelon. What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renato.
Угу.
Oh, this is gonna be fun, said Lupino as he ran to go set up his marvelous plan. Oh, kill the fox! Called the ravens.
Ай, забыл.
Nobody
Он
said they were
взрывается.
original.
Угу.
Renato felt dubious about the whole plan. With every step, he was waiting for it all to go horribly wrong. But against all odds, Peppino's idiotic plan worked. Zenobia's ravens ran off after the geese, the net dropped, and Renato jumped out of the watermelon and put his sword to Zenobia's throat. She'd vanished from Swordfu School, from his life, without even saying goodbye. Without ever telling him she was the Emperor's adopted daughter. Renato was aware of her feelings. Maybe this was a bad idea, but was he letting his own feelings get the better of him?
Угу. И там разветвление. Но мы шли по этому. Кажется, настроить зомби против ее отца. Давай тут попробуем.
Said Renato. Let's not do this. Let's not do what? Asked Zenobia. Look, you're the Emperor's right hand. You are going to have me interrogated, she said. Sure, yeah, but then I remembered how you feel about me. How I feel about you. You are going to have me interrogated. But I didn't. Because you care about me, said Renato. Well, guess again, Buster, he said as he pushed him off his own boat. As he plummeted towards the bottomless clouds of the abyss, Renato decided that he'd not really handle the situation with his usual finesse. He tried something bold and paid the price for it.
Че, все мы прошли? Или что?
The city was already under Zenobia's control.
Да ладно.
I had to admire her efficiency. Renato shivered at the thought of Zenobia at the mercy of the interrogators.
Забавно.
He'd really turn her over to them. But this was war. It wasn't meant to be pretty.
У нас просто выкинули с корабля, и игра закончилась. Окей, окей.
This was the nice part of town, but the ravens had been through here. They like to take shiny things home to their nests. Hero wall, hero sword, firewall, fire extinguisher.
Осталось 12, кстати. Мне...
Why was Lupino urging him to capture Zenobia?
Можешь сюда еще прыгнуть. Не забываем.
Obviously, it was a trap.
Чего?
But you never knew how Lupino thought. Sometimes his plans were so convoluted they did the exact opposite to what Lupino wanted. Yeah, there must be some way to
Ну,
play
смысл мы
it,
сейчас
Renato
вернемся к
thought.
тому, к чему мы были. Я, походу, это новый вариант.
Where was the cake? He'd been promised
Отстой
cake.
какой-то. Не, подожди. Мы сейчас вернемся к той истории, которую мы уже проходили. Смысл? О, мы в телепорт прыгнули, в этот раз не будем. Господи.
These things really slice like ham.
Сундук. А, да, может, в сундуке будут камни. Эти не камни. А, нет, все окей, ладно, хорошо.
So, what's this plan of yours? Use me as bait, said Lapino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese, a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lapino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renardo hiding inside a monstrous watermelon. What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renardo.
Хорошо.
Oh, this is gonna be fun, said Lapino, as he ran to go set up his marvelous plan.
Шли, наверное, завалапнем. Надеюсь, мне хватит.
I wonder what happens if I go that way.
Лапа нет. Раз.
Renato felt dubious about the whole plan. With every step, he was waiting for it all to go horribly wrong. But against all odds, Peppino's idiotic plan worked. She'd vanished from Swordfish
Так,
School,
главное не соглашаться.
from his life, without even saying
И не
goodbye.
выкинули.
Without ever telling him she was the Emperor's adopted daughter. Renato was aware of her feelings. Maybe this was a bad idea.
Ну да,
but
первая
was
история
letting his
смерти.
own feelings get the better of him? Ah, Lapina was right, Renato thought reluctantly. She knows things. She recognized his look.
Да.
Cats can run faster, but foxes can run longer.
Мы, по-моему,
If he ran, he could head
прыгнул
her
с
off before she
кораблями,
reached
за ней
her minions
погнались.
at the outpost. Well, he did love a good chase. The platform used a hybrid propulsion system fueled by anti-gravity and wishful thinking.
Я не пойму, тут были или не были.
Okay, let's get this over with and we can all go home. Well, not you, just me.
О, господи, сейчас умру, походу. Да, кошмар, какой, извиняюсь. Ой, это выпью воды. Что-то совсем плохо. Так, я тут, извиняюсь, бахнул чаю. Жизнь полегчала. Замки.
He was sort of yanking his own chain, wasn't he?
He was closing on her. He could smell her fear. He tried not to think about the interrogators at the secret base.
Две руды
What
осталось.
did they do to her? Maybe it didn't have to end that way. Maybe he could talk to her. But after all, there were worse things the Imperials had done to friends of his.
Блин, может, с ящиков 2 выпадет. Не. Можно, в принципе, уже то поменять. Ой, самоцветы поменять, короче. Вот этот поменять на скорость атаки. Да. Это бесит.
Renato reached the outpost. The Imperials there were no match for him. Soon after, Zenobia limped up the path. When she realized he was already in front of her, she didn't even try to run. Oh, you left without saying goodbye. Again, he said, please. You're enjoying this a little too much. She said, shaken. Oh, spare us the chit-chat, would you? Said Lapino as he shackled her hands so she couldn't throw spells. She knows all his plans. All the way back to the Farfarer, Lapino nagged Renato about how the interrogators would pry all the intel out of Zenobia. How that would turn the tide.
Мы убежали вверх.
All they had to do was take her to the rebels' secret base. Renato didn't like to think about what the interrogators would do to her. Couldn't he just talk to her?
Дознавателям погнали. Хотя тут, по-моему, тоже будет разветвление, если не ошибаюсь.
As they reached the ruins, Renato could see ravens everywhere, searching for the rebel base. They'd have to hide the Farfarer or go on foot. What if we get separated? Asked Lapino, for once thinking ahead. I'll show you a map to the base. Renato told Lapino. Renato, don't do this, said Zenobia. We were friends once. We... Shut it, witch, or I'll shackle your mouth too, said Lapino. See? Renato thought. There was no way Lapino was working for the Empire. He really hated Zenobia. And then, a few moments later, they touched down.
Ну, по-моему, через верх, если идти, то, по-моему, тоже будут. Еще, по-моему, будет разветвление одно.
As Lapino pulled Zenobia off the Farfarer, Renato readied himself for the battle ahead. I'm sorry I nicked your jacket, she said. It's just... Oh God. It's stupid, but... It smelled like you. What? He said, confused. Then... Why didn't you ride? Why didn't you far speak? Oh, save the romantic nostalgia. Let's go! Shrieked Lapino. So Renato launched himself down the path to the secret base.
Так. Давайте, наверное, возьмем. Так, тут почти фулл, да? Реально замедло.
Cool. Wish I could do that.
Я думал дальше взять. Но нет. Блин, там сундук был. Ладно, не туда пошел. Ой.
Renato was walking Zenobia to the rebel secret base, where she would be interrogated. So, why was he feeling so scared?
Угу. Тут я пошел не туда. Вот там мы были.
Renato wondered if it wasn't cheaper to build bridges and stairs.
Ну, горит. Угу. Так, если что, не смогу вернуться. Этот сундук поищем. Угу. Все мечи в пол.
Wow. The sword felt even colder.
Почему сундук горит? Да в чем прикол?
They caught their breath. It's beautiful, she said, looking at the ruins. This used to be the library of Ubar, he said. Before your father's ravens smashed it. Do we have to talk politics? She asked. That's not how I want to remember you, she said with an odd, wistful look on her face. She was as beautiful as she'd ever been. And as brave. Peppino huffed. They got back on the trail.
Угу. То есть, видишь, тут уже нельзя сюда идти. Просто мы там бегали по тому этому библиотеке. Мне кажется, там было еще прохождение. Еще одно было. Но за медлом стало проще играть. Угу. Мучи, устрашай, унижай. Народ, ведомый горсткой возомнивших дворян, понял мятеж. Движет ими зависть. Или они алчут моего могущества, или они просто преступники, желающие у нас украсть. Такое преступление заслуживает лишь одной кары — смерти. Сделай пример из лидеров. Казни каждого, кто посмеет за ним последовать. Или же это страх, что они падут жертвой, или это война. Это война за выживание. Разъясним им, что такое настоящий страх. Покарай их быстро и покарай их строго. Заставь их страдать, передай огню все, чем они дорожат. Или же это гордыня, что значение этих жертвоприношений лежит за пределами их разумения. Они желают участвовать в моих решениях. Такое высокомерие недопустимо. Брось тех, кто сдастся в соляную шахту. Пусть их легкие наполнятся едкой пылью. Пусть они предают друг друга за горстку объедков. Пусть их дети увидят, как они впадают в дикость. Покончи с мятежом, без сожаления, мучай, устрашай, рай. Военный манифест императора из Грима III. Жестко. Очень жестко. Но это мы не находили эту книжку, если что. Смысла уже нет, я думаю, открывать сундуки. Угу.
Two eyes good.
Спать.
One eye dead.
Не застревай. Ебите. Если бы не застрял в этих странных шкафах, было все бы хорошо. А вот она большая лестница. Сейчас, подожди. Это получается мы просто в вход пошли. Да, и что нельзя. Допустим.
long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. We needed some way to break the ice with this wall, so to speak.
Угу. Угу. И вот мы попали на базу. Так, тут... Я не помню, тут ничего допол не было. Важного для этого, для истории. Да, просто это.
As they made their way to the secret rebel base, Renato felt strange. Zenobia was his prisoner, yet somehow she felt more like an old friend. He wanted to tell her all his secrets, but suddenly the ruins lit up with thousands of fireworks. There was a thunderous roar and dust rose. The caves were collapsing. The caves? You've been playing me? Renato said, and he stared at Zenobia.
I'm sorry, she said, and she seemed almost embarrassed. Then everything went dark.
When Renato came to, he had a terrible headache. Also, Zenobia's sword was at his throat, and her shackles were gone. So was Lapino. The terrible thing is, he said, I really have missed you. Now that we've destroyed the rebellion, would you consider becoming an advisor to the Emperor's daughter?
I'm no one's servant. Everybody serves. Even if it's only destiny. I like to choose my own destinies, he said.
The whole point of a destiny is you can't choose. Oh, never mind, she said. Look, if I see you again, I'll have to kill you.
He watched her ship soar away. He would see her again, he decided. Even if he had to fight his way across the entire fleet.
Yeah.
The Imperial fleet was cleaning up the few rebel remnants. For only a moment, he thought about running.
But heroes don't run, even when the world is against them. Even when their cause is hopeless, and their efforts futile, and pointless, and useless, and death painful and guaranteed. He's decided to stop thinking for a while.
Тут у нас что? Императора.
The portal was heavily guarded. It must go someplace they really didn't want it to go.
Дефайся, алё. Да не жирно.
This thing really needed a roof.
Можем пойти сюда. Берем сундук. И все, да? О, ну-ка, норм. Зря сходили. Тут не были.
It was time for a little exploration.
И куда это? Угу. Давай этот. Истории. Возможно. Секунду. Я тут. Борись, защищай, добивайся. Никогда не забывай, что сражаешься. Империя несет этим островам мир, процветание, стабильность, прежде чем мой дед добился. Единение каждый сражался сам за себя, а сильные пожирали слабых. Таков был единственный закон. Повстанцы, распространяя ложь и равенство, и справедливости, и настаивая разделение власти, могут разрушить нашу великую империю. Или железной рукой можно обеспечить справедливость и равенство. Только карать преступников, чтобы искоренить преступность. Строго следить за благосостоянием каждого, чтобы устранить жадность, заглушать каждый голос раздора, чтобы достичь гармонии. Не заложите принципы в основу нашей империи. Другие пути ведут к варварству. Ты должен сражаться за нашу империю, ты должен защищать эти ценности. Ты первая и последняя линия нашей обороны против тьмы. Ты не подведешь. Борись, защищай, добивайся. Военный манифест императора Изенгрима III. Не, ясно. Да тут и манифест, в котором мы проходили, он сказал всех убивать без разбора. Во-во-во-во. Уже куда мне идти? Что за прикол? Подожди, нахрена мне туда сюда идти? Что? Сундук. Как много. Походу, там, где нас кролик предает, еще должна быть ветка событий. Походу. Немноговато вас.
Renaro's arm was sore, his armor wet with raven blood. He was tired of death. But death was not yet tired of him. The rebels were losing. Badly. In some other universe, Renaro thought, he and Zenobia had left Sword Fu School together, taken out their names and sailed off into the mists. But not this Zenobia, and not him. For him, there was nothing to do but forge ahead. Kill the Emperor and end this.
Было все так просто. Так, там был телепорт, значит, там уже было как-то еще пойти какой-то дорогой. Финишная прямая, кстати.
There was an inscription on the platform. Balaleka lessons with an address.
Балалайка. Не хватает медведя. Открывай ворота, мужик. Я пришел.
At last, he reached the Emperor's ship. Zenobia was there. Why'd you have to come back? She said, guess I'm just serving my destiny. He shrugged. You don't even know what that word means. She said, do you ever wonder if things have been different? All the time, she said, and drew her sword. In the end, Bernardo lay bleeding out on the deck. Zenobia sat by his side, upset. What are you so upset about? He asked. You wouldn't understand. Why didn't you tell me you were going to leave school? I was afraid you'd convince me not to. I guess I'll have to buy you a drink in the halls of the Valiant then, he told her. And then he was gone. Oh, again? But he already had all the secrets he needed. He was sure of that. He must have not used them the right way. What was the best, worst mistake he could make? Probably trusting that traitor Lapino.
Так, стройдись в угол кошки. Что это за герой? Герой, который не спасается бегством, даже если против него весь мир. Две кошки, кстати. Получается 10-е, 5-е, 12-е.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Bernardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Bernardo had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion, and he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.
Ладно, будем тогда на этом заканчивать. Спасибо всем, кто был. Продолжим тогда на Лапино в следующем стриме в этой игре. Еще раз всем спасибо, кто был. И всем пока-пока.